Hey PLN, welcome to episode 210 of Fresh Air at 5. This week, I wrap up Spring Break 2025. Sitting around at home, not sitting around, doing stuff around the house, doing some professional development for myself, and spending time with family and friends. So, take a listen to what's going on with Carpenter this week. Hope you can grow from this, and I hope you've had a good spring break yourself if you've been on spring break this week. All right, thanks for listening. Pass this along. Check it out on YouTube as well as on Twitter and Blue Sky, where I post my dailies, but also the podcast here. Thanks for listening. Okay, bye.
This is Jeremy Jorgensen, host of the Edify podcast, proud member of the Education Podcast Network. Each show on the network is independently owned, and the views expressed may not represent those of other podcasts. For the best education podcasts, visit edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. I'm your host, Brian Carpenter, coming to you every week from Abbotsford, which is about 45 minutes east of Vancouver, British Columbia, on the west coast of Canada. Fresh Air at 5 is my regular attempt to get some fresh air by walking about my neighborhood, which is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Stolo people, the Simath First Nation and Mathwe First Nation. I consume podcast content while I walk, then reflect on this content in an unedited video, which I post on my X, formerly known as Twitter, channel every day. This podcast is the collection of the audio taken from those daily selfie videos over the course of a week, Monday to Friday. So let's jump into my listening and learning this past week. Hey PLN, it's March 24, 2025, Spring Break Part 2, second week I should say, not the second part, well it's the second half of Spring Break, and this week it's supposed to be wet like it was last week, and I'm here in Abbotsford, BC, Canada, and it's been a pretty damp and wet one. My wife, she's in Mexico with Joanne right now, and they're enjoying the sun and heat down there, so that's fantastic. I'm glad for them. Ryan and I are planning on doing much fishing in May and June and April, so we'll get some not as nice weather, but we're going lake fishing for rainbow trout, so that'll be super great when we do that. All right, this morning I listened to episode 207 of Tech Tools for Teachers with Shanna Martin and Fuzz Martin, and I listened to them talk about School AI, a great time-saving tool. There's tools inside of School AI, and there's lots of resources and things that you can use inside of School AI. And School AI is one of the preferred AI tools in our district that has been PIA'd and supported by our digital learning department. And so it's one of those things that, yes, we are permitted to use with our students. How do we use it? There are spaces inside of there so we can make, custom tutors for different parts of our curriculum to help support students. There's writing coaches, reading coaches, things like that that's within that. Then there's the teacher tools in the tools section for like rubric generators, the joke generator. Fuzz is big on the joke generator, and that last joke at the end of that episode, that was a snorer at the very end, Fuzz. I laughed. I thought it was pretty good, actually. But how we can use these different tools to save us time. Check it out for yourself. Free has got a whole lot, and premium has more, but there's a lot you can do for free. All right, thanks, Shanna. Have a fabulous day. I hope you get through fall's spring number 2 pretty quick. Okay, bye. The last thing for March 24, 2025. Teach Happier, Season 5, Episode 29, has Suzanne Daly challenging us with what is yours to do? How do we do what we have to do and prioritize the things that we need to do so that we can get them done. It's not ours to control the day, but it is ours to control what we can bring to the day. It's ours to control what we can bring to the day, and that's important that we know and realize that. So as we're going through our day, you know, like, I can't control what the day throws at me, but I can control my attitudes and perceptions as I step into the day of the things that I can do. I can show up for work. I can be there for my wife and family after I get home from work. I can go for a walk in the morning, and I can make that a priority. I can go to bed a half an hour earlier so that I am getting a half an hour more rest than I think I need. I can stop watching TV at, after 10 o'clock p.m. so that I can quiet my mind before I do go to bed. All right, there's a lot that we can think about and a lot that we can do. Take a listen to this episode from Suzanne. She says it much better than I, but I appreciate you listening to me ramble on right now. Thanks so much. Have a fabulous Monday. I am going to. That is the one thing that I can do, is make sure I have a good Monday and enjoy my day. Okay, bye. Hey, PLN, it is March 25, 2025. I'm just in the U.S. right now going to get my wife. She's been away at Mexico for the past week, and it's time to go get her from the airport at Seattle. On the way down, my daughter and I are traveling. We're just stopping at Chick-fil-A for a bite. So excited about that. Looking forward to eating the Chick-fil-A. All right. I listened to episode 186 as we're coming down here. Forced my daughter to listen with me, and she's like, do we have to really do this, Dad? And I said, yeah, we do. So episode 186 of the EdTech Throwdown with Eric and Nick, as they bring us 12 AI tools to use in the 2025-26 school year. They talk about, they each have their own things, but Nick, I'm going to say that I'm voting for you today because you talked about AI tools that are not Google dependent. So I'm going with what you have to say. I listened to a podcast with the founder, one of the guys that the founder types of Deladeo, talking about filtering and using AI filters for your websites and things like that in your school. So I think that's a pretty cool one. I like the twin picks idea. So that's about getting students to use prompt engineering and teaching them prompt engineering to get a result out of an image. You also talked about school AI sidekicks, and I got to look into this because I could put these types of tutors into my online courses to help students with chemistry 11 and 12. So that could be a useful help in an online space because I can't be there to answer all the questions. And one of my colleagues already has something in there. I think she's also got something from Conmigo in there as well. You mentioned that too. So Nick, you win today, winning. So I will post this in the Blue Sky and on Twitter and say Nick wins for this episode. So Eric, you had some awesome things to share. So good. So good. But Nick wins. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a fabulous day. Might listen to another podcast before we're done here today. Bye. All right. The last thing for March 25, 2025. As I'm here now at the SeaTac airport waiting for my wife, I thought I would reflect on episode 128 of Evolving with Gratitude with Elaine Rao, as she brings a solo episode to us called From Aspirational to Actual, Being Your Best Self. And she talks about tips about how we can look at those who appear to be doing good with their lives and living their actually best lives from our perceptions, obviously, and see the habits and things that they do and model after them. Now, we can't do all of it. It's not possible for us to do all of it. And even in this episode, Lainey brings us a number of tips and suggestions about how to do it. She talks about our morning routine, our evening routine. So important that we do those things well to set ourselves up for a good day. There's a whole lot of other things she talks about in here. You need to listen for yourself so that you can hear it, because I can't tell you all about it. Because there's just a lot there. Lainey, appreciate you. Thank you so much. I'm thankful for your podcast, Evolving with Gratitude. All right, now I'm waiting for my wife, who's coming back from Mexico. Okay, bye-bye. Hey, PLN, it's Thursday, March 27, 2025. Out for fresh air at 5, a bit later in the day. As you know, I slept in. Only got a few more days of sleep in for spring break 2025, so I'm going to enjoy that happening. Well, maybe not tomorrow sleeping in so much. Anyhow, I'll get to that later. Well, probably tomorrow morning, tell you what's happening then. All right, this morning, as I'm out walking now, it's a beautiful, we got blue sky behind us. There's clouds around, but it's not the cloudy that they were talking about us getting torrential rain today. You know, it's hard to plan outdoor activities and how to dress for them if you're watching the weather forecast all the time. And that's what I've been doing this week, which is totally unfortunate. But, you know, going fishing in the pouring rain, not my idea of fun, and getting caught out in it, not my idea of fun either. All right, this morning I listened to Steph and Joe on the go as Stephanie Howell and Joe Marquez bring us Too Many Choices. And I was like, what are they going to talk about? It's about choice paralysis, or the conundrum of choices. Joe says that when presented with too many choices, we get paralyzed and don't know what the best choice is to do. You know, this is about technology integration and about making sure that we are teaching technique over the tool, over the technology, right? You know, so what are we trying to get at as far as preparing our students and our adult learners for moving forward being digitally literate? You know, teaching them a specific tool only to be able to make one or two specific things within that tool is not teaching them digital literacy. It's teaching them about that tool. We call it digital literacy. Yes, I agree. Stephanie talked also in here about the modality as opposed to the content of choice. You know, we want everybody to learn the same content, but what's the mode of doing so? Listening to a podcast, reading an article, reading a summary, reading and taking a look at an infographic. So that's important. Take a listen. Steph and Joe on the go from March 21st. Thanks. Bye. APLN, it's Friday, March 28, 2025. That means that this is the last Friday of my spring break and back to school on Monday. So yes, between now and then, I've got some excitement happening. I'm going to be having breakfast with Tim Cavey and Tim Stevenson this morning here in Abbotsford, and we're going to connect and reconnect and talk about podcasting and content creation and just check it in to see how we are doing, because it's been, well, since just before Christmas that we got together to chat with some others. All right, this morning as I was up early, I decided I was going to check in on a podcast that I probably had listened to. I can't recall 100%, but from about a year ago on Teachers on Fire, episode 237, as Tim Cavey talks with Jeremy Jorgensen out of Wisconsin about reflection and learning and reflection make life better. Conversation with Jeremy Jorgensen. And so I decided to listen to that because Jeremy and I, we recently have connected, and just before Christmas, around Christmas time, I wrote a blog article for Jeremy because he reached out, took a step out on X and said, hey, Brian, would you like to write a blog article for my website? And he gave me some prompts to reflect on. I did so, and that has been posted. Since then, Jeremy has worked on starting up his podcast and getting that going more officially. He's joined the Educational Podcast Network, and he and I, last Friday night, I called him on the phone because I noticed that he is now part of the Educational Podcast Network with myself and others there. So you can go check out his podcast there. And it was really great to hear his interview with Tim again, and the importance of reflection, the importance on relationships in our work, the importance on caring for the whole kid. And that's something that we focus on in my school as well. All right. Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Tim. See you guys. Bye. The last thing for March 28, 2025. Okay, I'm going to give you a recap of some of the things that have happened this week since I reflected last week at the end of first week of spring break. All right, since last week, I have gone to Seattle to go pick up my wife, as you heard, possibly in the podcast earlier, as she was in Mexico with our friend, Joanne, and they got to spend some time relaxing in Mexico on the beach, which was really great. My daughter and I, we took a road trip down to Seattle, did some shopping for her that she wanted to do at Barnes & Noble and some other American things that she can't do here in Canada, and we came back on Tuesday night. Tuesday, Jake Miller from Educational Duct Tape podcast, he reached out to me and said, Brian, would you like to be on my podcast? And I'm like, yes, sir. So we actually sat down yesterday and we had an interview that will hopefully come out in a couple weeks or so, Jake said. And so we talked about creating content with students and how we can go about doing that. So hopefully you take a look at that. When that comes out, that's exciting. Thanks, Jake. Appreciate the invite and the great conversation. Also this week, I was working on my Level 2 Adobe Creative Educator course and working on achieving that certificate. I was hoping to get my application in by today for the Adobe Innovators Academy, but that did not happen because I was late to getting Level 2 completed. But getting Level 2 complete, I was working through that course. There's a lot of great content in there. So if you are not an Adobe Creative Educator Level 1 or 2 person with a badge, you could go get that from their education site. And it's fantastic. What else is going on? Oh, I'm going for breakfast with Tim and Tim this morning. So that's going to be fun. And later today, I'm going to keep working on a bit of more professional development. Probably jump in, see how much marketing I've got to do in my courses at school, and wrap up. Have a good day. Bye.
I appreciate you giving me a listen as I've created this podcast experience for you. It's like a unique Blinkist or Coles Notes version of the content I take in, like a highlight reel, so that you can hopefully find some other interesting podcasts you may not have considered before. I've recorded the specific episode podcast titles and episode numbers in the show notes, which are only a click or swipe away for your learning convenience. I've also started to put together a Spotify playlist of each of the episodes so that you can also take a listen to those specifically, and the link to that playlist is in the show notes. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming episodes. And if you enjoy this podcast and its format, share it with someone else. You can also follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Brian Carr, BRYONCAR, or at Fresh Air at 5. Tweet about your experience or give it a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. Fresh Air at 5 can be found on the Educational Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. I hope you have a fantastic day. Get some fresh air before the day is out and take care of yourself because you are worth it.